Imagine a ship violently trapped in a freezing, fog-choked expanse of Arctic ice. This is the predicament of Captain Robert Walton, a man leading a highly dangerous maritime expedition straight toward the North Pole. Walton is obsessed with glory. He desperately wants to cement his name in history by discovering a northern passage, and he is entirely willing to risk his own life and the lives of his entire crew to secure that immortality. But as the crew waits for the fog to clear, they spot a dog sled out on the ice. They pull a European man aboard who is emaciated, freezing, and entirely alone in the middle of nowhere. Walton nurses this stranger back to health. Believing he has finally found an intellectual equal, the captain confesses his own burning ambition, assuming this mysterious traveler will admire his willingness to sacrifice everything for a place in history. Instead, the stranger bursts into tears. He recognizes this exact mindset, and he knows firsthand that an unrelenting drive for ultimate glory is actually a fatal psychological poison. The stranger, Victor Frankenstein, looks at the captain and asks if he is also drunk of the intoxicating draught. Victor sees clearly that Walton is walking directly into the exact same trap that ruined his own life. Victor commits his final hours to recounting his history as a desperate intervention, hoping his personal ruin can prevent Walton's impending catastrophe. This diagram shows exactly how these parallel paths play out. The ensuing narrative offers a forensic breakdown of a very specific phenomenon. Unchecked ambition demands total isolation, and those two forces combined guarantee total destruction. Victor's story begins in an idyllic before state. He grew up in Geneva, deeply attached to his adopted sister Elizabeth and his closest friend Henry Clerval. Then his mother catches scarlet fever and dies. That sudden loss shatters his perfect, sheltered worldview. Looking for answers, Victor leaves for the University of Ingolstadt. He replaces outdated alchemy with modern chemistry, captivated by professors who promise that science can grant a person godlike power over the elements. He throws himself entirely into natural philosophy, the 18th century term for the study of the physical world and its hidden phenomena. Soon, a single consuming obsession takes hold. He wants to discover the biological secret of life. The trauma of his mother's death has rewired his mind. What begins as a natural scientific curiosity twists into an arrogant, obsessive crusade to conquer death. To achieve this, Victor systematically severs all his human ties, ignoring his family's anxious letters, focusing entirely on his dark work in a solitary cell at the top of his house. His methods quickly spiral into the macabre. He spends months scavenging charnel houses and slaughterhouses, treating biological decay as raw construction material. Because assembling microscopic human parts is too difficult, he engineers a shortcut. He builds a gigantic 8-foot-tall human frame, laboring at a relentless, feverish pace. Late on a dreary November night, the project reaches its climax. Victor infuses life into the lifeless clay, and a monstrous, watery yellow eye opens. Victor had expected to birth a beautiful, perfect being. Instead, he looks at the hideous, breathing reality of his creation and feels an immediate, overwhelming wave of sheer revulsion. In a moment of pure panic, he runs. He sprints out of the laboratory and hides in his bedroom, abandoning his creation in the dark. The chemical science had actually worked perfectly. The true failure was executing that science without any ethical responsibility or human empathy to guide the aftermath. Fleeing his own success causes Victor's mind to snap. He collapses into a severe nervous fever that incapacitates him for several months. Fortunately, his childhood friend Henry Clerval arrives in Ingolstadt. He spends the entire winter selflessly nursing Victor back to health, giving him a false sense of security that the nightmare is over. By spring, Victor is taking nature walks and briefly reintegrating into society. He receives a warm, grounding letter from Elizabeth, detailing the simple joys of life back home. Then, reality breaches his isolated bubble. A letter arrives from his father, containing a crushing blow. Victor's innocent youngest brother, William, has been murdered. Victor instantly knows the truth. The creature he engineered and abandoned is the killer. Isolating yourself to pursue forbidden knowledge does not contain the danger. The consequences will inevitably escape the laboratory and destroy the people you love most. This brings the narrative right back to the freezing Arctic, where a dying Victor finishes his confession aboard Walton's trapped ship. Victor is holding up a mirror. He wants Walton to see that risking a crew's lives to conquer the North Pole is the exact same hubris that built the monster. When you pursue technological breakthroughs without moral boundaries, the system spirals into a catastrophic failure that hurts others. The only way to safely manage world-altering discoveries is by building structural walls of human empathy and ethical community around the innovation. When humans attempt to play God, they focus solely on the power of creation. But without accepting the profound, lifelong responsibilities of caring for what they build, they do not achieve divinity. They simply engineer their own doom.